What's up, guys? It is StarFlorge here, and today I am bringing you the warrior build from the Never Ending group build. Now, next week I will be moving on to my Dragon Age 4 speculations, what I think will be in them, or what could come up in them, and then a few people have been wanting some kind of nightmare playthrough, which should hopefully come in the future. I'm just making sure I can actually get the recording for it done. The reason I am doing this warrior build is because in the past quite a few people have wanted a new updated kind of unkillable tank sort of build, and my artifactor rogue build, I've realized, is pretty much exactly the same as the build I had previously, so I'll put a link in the description if you want to go see the artifactor build on Varric for this never ending group build. But we will move on to this warrior. So this warrior is a Blackwarn. He's a champion, and champion I find is obviously the most defensive class in the game. You can go pretty much tank on any warrior, but champion just makes you absolutely broken and unkillable. But let's start off in the champion tree. Now, we're taking line in this stand, and I'm actually using it because I have found some scenarios where line in the sand is actually useful. There are a lot of places, especially in the quest line, where you're in some kind of fort, where there are a lot of choke points that you can really take advantage of, and especially on Nightmare with Trials, being able to trap enemies in a place so they can only hit your warrior and completely take them away from your other party members is a great advantage. And for this I have taken the everlasting barricade, which means it just lasts forever. So you could just hold a choke point forever. You can cast spells while you're in there, so you're not just gonna sit there and do nothing. You can cast spells, keep taunting enemies, and it's just very nice for closing off choke points. Now let's go down to the left. This increases your maximum guard by 25%, and this is bulwark. And guard is such a key stat to being a tank, because guard is pretty much broken in this game, I've found. On top of the mages in this build that give you barrier, you've got guard, barrier, and you're just tanky beyond belief, which makes this guy absolutely unkillable. Next we're going down to adamant, which means we get 20% armor bonus, and that was I was talking about unkillable, because after all your guard and barrier goes, that's if it does, odds are it won't, you've got all of that armor on top of it. Next we're going to resilience, which means you don't flinch, you don't blink, and you do not back down. So when enemies hit you, they have a 5% chance to actually stun themselves for 2 seconds, which could be extremely nice, especially when there is a lot of mobs attacking you. It can be really quite nice just to get one mob stunned for 2 seconds. It is that 5% chance, but sometimes that can make a difference in a fight. Then we're going down to unyielding, which is extremely nice, which means when you go below a 5% health, you will instantly become invulnerable for 5 seconds, and this has a 60-second cooldown on itself. So again, if you are somehow losing all your barrier, all your guard, and then past all your armor, and you get down to 5%, you won't die, you will go invulnerable for 5 seconds, and then you have to wait 60 seconds before this can happen again. Usually this doesn't come out, it's just the one, it's just for worst case scenarios, and also against hard mobs like archdemons or bosses. Next, we're going into Walking Fortress, which is pretty much the same as Unyielding, but you can just use it whenever you like. So for 8 seconds, you are completely immune to damage, which is insane, and this only has a 32-second cooldown, unlike the 60 seconds for 5 seconds. But the difference with this, Unyielding will just proc straight away when you're gonna die, whereas Walking Fortress, you can just use it whenever. So if you know spells of what bosses do, or you just feel like there's a ton of damage incoming, you can use Walking Fortress to your advantage. Now I take the Siege Breaker upgrade, which means for every single attack that strikes you gain 10% guard. So it's quite nice if you do run out of all of your guard and barrier, and some of your spells are on cooldown, you can use Walking Fortress to then become invulnerable, keep tanking enemies, and then gain all of your guard back up. Next we are going to the Vanguard, which I actually haven't gone down the right tree because it would have been too many points for a kind of a viable end game build. However, if you do have more points to spend on this build, definitely go into Trust of Steel because you get that 20% armor bonus, which is extremely nice. But nevertheless, we're going down to Warcry, which is an exceptional tank spell which you taunt nearby enemies for 4 seconds. You gain 20% guard per enemy taunted. It has a 24-second cooldown, and for some reason, all of my abilities say they're costing 0. Why are they costing 0? So, now we are back, and Warcry does cost 35 stamina. You take the Cool to Arm upgrade, which means you get 200% armor bonus for 10 seconds. Then we're going out to Intouchable Defense, which means there's another max guard bonus of 25%, which means you're getting a ton of maximum guard. So you will be literally unkillable in the never-ending build, which is all about, as it says, never-ending. Then we're going down into Charging Bull, which is a great gap closer, but also guard generator. So it does 150% weapon damage to each enemy you knock over. You gain 10% guard per enemy hit. You also knock them down as well, so they are knocked over briefly. It has an 8-second cooldown, and it costs 5 stamina per second, so you can run a very long distance with this. And you can see it's got a tiny cooldown, so you can dash across the battlefield pretty much all the time, especially when you pair it with Lunge and Slash. We're going to take the Gore and Trample upgrade, which means once you've finished your charge, your next ability costs no stamina, which is extremely effective for popping things like popping Warcry or Horn of Valor, or basically anything whatsoever. Next, we're going to go down into It'll Cost You, which means 50% of the damage you take is dealt back to the enemy, which is extremely nice. Basically, it makes your tank deal a lot of damage without actually having to deal damage. Seeing as you are taking less damage than normal because of your guard, your barrier, and armor bonuses, it's not that much, but it is extremely effective over long fights. The main reason you also take it is to get into Livid. The duration of 15 seconds in an area of 5 meters, and each stack can have a max stack of 5. So what these mean is for every enemy in the 5-meter area, you will get 10% damage reduction, which can obviously go up to a maximum of 50% damage reduction. Then you also get a damage bonus increase by 10% per enemy hit. So every time you hit an enemy, this stacks up to 50% maximum. This has a cooldown time of 32 seconds, but we are taking the upgrade. You gain guard for each nearby enemy, and that is 20%. So Livid, you can use it and you will just gain an absurd amount of guard as always. You can take Endless Strength if you really don't need the guard, but in this never-ending build, we want us to be never-ending, and on Nightmare with Trials, sometimes there are those hard situations, and Livid just gets you that extra bit of guard and damage reduction. Then we're going into Battlemaster, where we're taking Grippling Chain just to get into everything. I'll go down the right first, which means when you are attacked from behind, when you attack a target from behind, you leave them slowed. So if you hit someone from behind, they're running away or something, you will reduce their speed by 50% for 3 seconds, which is very useful when someone is running away, or you can get behind them. If they decide to run off to one of your party members, you can turn around, hit them, and they will be slowed. Next, we're going down into Deep Reserves, which is a great warrior passive, which means when you are below 50% stamina, your stamina regeneration rate increases by 50%. So you basically have a ton more stamina regeneration when you have low stamina. We're going then to Crippling Blows, which means your critical hits leave the enemies weakened. Now we don't take this because of how good it is, because you are a tank and odds are you're not going to be critting a ton, but it does mean that if you do crit, they have their damage reduced by 15% for 10 seconds, and this effect stacks. So you can do crit warrior builds where you actually get mobs to deal 100% less damage, which can be very useful. Now we're going down to Coup de Grace, which means you deal more damage to enemies that are stunned or knocked down, and that is 30% damage bonus. The main reason we've taken all this is to get down to Horn of Valor, which means you and your allies gain a 15% damage bonus, 15% armor bonus, and that lasts 10 seconds with a cooldown time of 18 seconds and costs only 35 stamina. But we are taking the upgrade Fortifying Blast, which means whenever one of your allies or you deals damage, that person will gain 10% guard. So if the tank deals damage, they gain 10% guard and no one else. If one of the mages deals damage, they gain 10% guard and no one else, which means basically your entire party will just stack up on armor as well as the barrier, leading to the ridiculously overpowered never-ending group that just never dies. Now, lastly, we are going on to a weapon and shield, going down the right side to get Payback Strike first, which deals 200% weapon damage. If you take damage within 5 seconds, it deals an extra 200% weapon damage for an overall 400%. Cooldown time of 8 seconds and another low cost of 35 stamina. And we're taking the upgrade Sweet Revenge, which means if you've taken damage, you can deal another 200%, so an overall of 600% damage bonus, and you also stun the taunted enemies for 2 seconds, which is extremely useful if you need to get a quick stun onto an enemy. Then we're going down to Turn the Bolt, which means if you take attacks from range units from the front, you will get that damage reduced by 50%. Then we're going down into Lunge and Slash, which is a great gap closer, which deals 175% weapon damage, cooldown time of 8 seconds, and another low cost of 35 stamina, and is also impact detonator. So you lunge forward quite a distance, and we're taking the upgrade Great Lunge, which means the further you lunge, the more damage you deal. So at 5 meters you gain a damage bonus of 75%, at 10 meters you deal a bonus of 250%, anywhere in between it's a scaling factor, and as you can see by this, it means you can actually lunge up to 10 meters away, which is extremely effective for gap closing. Then lastly but not least, we are taking Turn the Blade, which means any damage from the front is reduced by 20%. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and you're looking forward to the Dragon Age 4 speculations. If you did enjoy this video, leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time.
I turn my head to the sky, focus one thought at a time. I do not like the little things under my tongue.